Today, your soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard are better educated than before, are better physical specimens, have high morale, and understand what the war is all about.
As I mentioned before about changing the minds of the apathetic populace, the key is to communication. And most of the American soldiers I know can't communicate. They don't really understand the Vietnamese way of life and its goal. And the only way they can communicate is through money, or with a gun. So after a while, they develop this kind of fear. And so a misunderstanding and a non-communication. They mistrust the Vietnamese, and they kind of despise them.
Once we got to Vietnam, it was an entirely different story. The officers started referring to the Vietnamese as gooks. They even went so far as to say that the only good gook is a dead.
When a captive is taken by free world forces, he is following interrogation, turned over to the Vietnamese authorities. These prisoners are not being mistreated. They are being handled in accordance with the provisions of the Geneva Convention. These prisoners are not being mistreated. They are being handled in accordance. These prisoners are not being mistreated. They are being handled in accordance. These prisoners are not being mistreated. They are being handled.
Prisoners were executed in our outfit as a standard policy. We were told by our CO after our first battle that from then on we weren't going to take any prisoners.
Okay, today's the day. It's the big one. This is the one we've been waiting for. This is the one you've all been saying to yourself, what this company needs is a good fight. By the grace of God, we're going to get it. From there, we're going to S&D, search and destroy, the thing you guys like. Okay.
We went into the countryside, and we saw great evidence in the cities as well that the people are generally armed. The civilian militia is very large. The women shared, for instance, the burden of anti-aircraft gunfire, defense of the city. We saw large numbers of men and women on the roofs of buildings preparing in the early stages of air alarms for the bombardment itself. And they said to us quite openly on several occasions, look, one of the most practical evidences of the truth that this government speaks for us is that the government has armed us. To the point where if we wanted, we could bring the government down in a day. And they themselves know this.
At the time that I was in North Vietnam, there obviously had not been any breaking of the morale of the people, either in the cities or, as far as I could observe, out in the villages, although they had been subjected to an extremely heavy bombardment. At that time, it was reaching the levels of World War II, and of course, since that time, it's been much strengthened. The people of North Vietnam are young for the most part, and the war effort is largely on the backs of teenagers, not because they're running out of manpower, but because this is a young country.
The North Vietnamese always insist that they are winning this war, that they are not simply resisting. And when I talked to Prime Minister Pham Van Dong, he said that we are not under-bombing, we are facing the bombs. And at first I thought that this was mere propaganda. But seeing the North Vietnamese fighting in the country and in the towns, I think that psychologically it is true.
Prime Minister Pham Van Dong has stressed in his talk with me the parallel between the ancient struggles of the Vietnamese people against the Chinese, the Manchus, and the Mongols, and their contemporary struggles for independence, which began, of course, under the French many years ago, were continued without interruption through World War II, then resumed again against the French, and are now being carried on against the Americans. Prime Minister Pham Van Dong turned to me at one point and said, Mr. Salisbury, how long do you want to fight? Would you like to fight for 10 years, 20, or 30? You pick the term of yours. We're ready to accommodate you.